All right, welcome everybody to the first installation of Fix That Ending by the Rewrite Lab. So, I am a huge My Hero Academia fan. When it first came out, I was big time into season 1, 2, 3, and season 4 was great. And then it started falling off a cliff. And I feel that the community needs somebody to step up and be the ending doctor or the ending writer. Somebody that anybody can come to and say, hey, I have a story. Can you help me fix my ending? Right? And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fix this ending. I'm going to fix my hero's ending. And I know I'm looking over here and you're over here. So I'm looking at both screens, by the way. So I apologize if it doesn't feel like I'm talking to you at times. But so I've done a lot of studying, 20 years worth of story analysis and writing. I feel I'm at the point where I can write a good ending. And I look at my hero's ending and it really hurts internally, right? I lost some sleep. I legit lost some sleep. I mean, I'm a huge All Might fan. I even have a tattoo of All Might. All right, like I really enjoyed this series, and I think it's time to really do like a deep dive into it. And what is wrong with this? What's wrong with the ending? So first off, what is the ending? And now I can't pull this stuff up for you guys to see. I'm afraid of copyright and I don't want that, but let's just go through it. In chapter 430, it ends with a panel with Deku standing in front of my hero, and you got the big H in the background, and it says, and that's the story of how we became the greatest heroes. And he has like the Frohawk or whatever. I don't know what's going on with that thing, but what? That's the story of how we became the greatest heroes? That's how we end the whole series, right? Like we get no love story finish, right? We have no idea what happens between the two of them. There's of course the ending panels we're gonna get that has like the extra to it, but it's just wrong. It's just so very wrong. So I'm gonna start off with why. What is the very first? What is my biggest issue with this? And I'm going to show you the clip. I'm actually going to show you the clip on this one. I got it up right here. And we're going to hit play. So let's just listen.
My dream is becoming a reality.
Okay. Your dream is becoming a reality.
And though I've had setbacks,
okay,
I keep pushing forward.
Keep pushing forward. Cool.
My journey is just beginning.
Easy.
You see, this is the story of how I become the world's greatest hero.
What was that? This is the story of how I became the world's greatest hero. Okay, that's the promise. Wrong one. This is the story of how I became the world's greatest hero. Now, I went back and read the manga, and the manga says this is the story of how I became one of the greatest heroes, or something like that. So it didn't promise that I was the best. But either way, the promise is still, I, singular, am great. A great hero. And we get the last panel, and freaking chapter 430. I'm going to read it again. It says, the story of how we all became the greatest heroes. So, broken promise. Just to start it off, not good. If you're going to promise something to your readers and to your audience, you need to deliver on that promise. So let's go ahead and let's say fix that story ending. And let's go to that last panel and change it into this is the story about how I became the greatest hero or one of the greatest heroes. Okay? So that needs to be the ending. He still needs to be. So let's fix that first. Okay. By the way, that episode is episode 14. So go back and watch. Go to your Netflix or Crunchyroll. Go to episode 14. And it's near the end of it. Right? It's like the last like 2 minutes of the show, and he's like charging up, and he says that. So evidence. So here's my question: at what point does he become the greatest hero? And what does it mean to become the greatest hero? So if that's what the story premise is, great story premise, right? Just like all these other stories, like Attack on Titan, great premise to a story, right? Like, let me eat that person. Great ending, or great start, right? So, let's start there. At what point does Deku become the greatest hero? So we know at what point he becomes the #1 hero, although it's not officially said. It's All Might retires, and then Endeavor cannot fight Chisaki, right? Or Chisakai, whatever you want to call it. And it's the dude that can reform his body using quirks that he steals from other people. Basically, it's all for one that he fights with the power of Eri. And I thought that was beautifully done. This shows like the true potential of Deku. If he had absolutely no limitations, if he had truly had All Might's strength at 100%, what could he do with it and how would he compare to AFO? And it does a great job of setting up that this power is building as it gets passed from user to user. And now that it got passed from All Might to Deku, the power has grown bigger. And he just absolutely dominated Chisaki, right? It was beautiful. I thought it was great. And I thought we were going to get a lot more of that. And then we were getting things like Quirk Singularity. We were getting foreshadowing, a lot of foreshadowing going on. But he becomes the greatest hero after All Might falls. And then, fast forward to the end, Endeavor falls, leaving Deku as the greatest hero. So he doesn't actually earn it. It's not earned, and it's given to him. All Might takes it, gives it to him. Well, okay, how do I get it? I have to clean a beach for a summer. There are people all over the world cleaning beaches, right? That just do Habitat for Humanity, right? Making houses, stuff like that, right? Like, that doesn't make you eligible. I guess it makes you eligible, but that does not grant you the greatest status, right? So when we look at like Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, right? They had I'm gonna list them out. We got courage, sacrifice, humility. He has all of those, right? Once we go through the list: resilience, empathy, determination, transformation, connections to the other world, commitment to a cause, willingness to face the unknown. These are all traits of a hero, of the greatest heroes, right? So connection to an ordinary world. Deku has no quirk. He's quirkless. He's committed to a cause. I'm gonna be the greatest hero. But is that really a cause? See, All Might had a cause. All Might's cause was to save people. It was to help others. Deku was like, I'm going to be the greatest hero. I'm going to be like All Might. His journey was, I'm going to be like him. It's very selfish in that regard, right? Sure, he has empathy and determination and humility, and we know he has an abundance of sacrifice. He sacrifices his body on the regular, right? None of that is in question, but he doesn't undergo a fundamental transformation, and he isn't really selfless when you think about it. I mean, sure, he does a lot of selfless acts by like saving Uchaka in the beginning, or Araka, but he doesn't know he's going to hurt his body. But once he knows he's going to start hurting his body, like he flicks it, whatever, then it becomes that point where, yes, he's committing those sacrifices. So I'm not going to say that isn't one of his charms. But Midoriya, and this is my next biggest issue, is Midoriya does not undergo like a fundamental change. Other than he gets better at using his quirks. He understands his quirks better. He still wants to be a hero. He'll do anything to become the hero, and he'll sacrifice himself, which includes at the very end of the manga. So huge spoilers here. He sacrifices his quirks. He gives them up. He sacrifices literally everything that he believes makes him a hero, and he uses the ashes of One for All to overcome Tomura. But like the only change that occurs near the end is where like he trusts his team to take down the entire league, but that's not anything that he hasn't done before. He's constantly placing trust in other people because he knows he has limits. In the end of the manga, he knows he still has limits, but they're not like as limited as possible. He's not like 20%, 45%. I'm at, like in terms of like maximum power. He's at like full capacity. And then he's even talking to his users, the previous users, you can't do this again, you can't do that again, you're going to lose. So he knows he has limits, and he knows he has to have other people help him. So that's not even a fundamental change. Deku does not undergo any fundamental changes. His weaknesses and his needs aren't really like discussed. Like from what I did a lot of like research on this, really like trying to pick it apart. I think Deku has like 3 main weaknesses. It's his lack of self-trust, because he doesn't really trust his abilities outside of One for All. Think about it. What is he really good at? Investigating, like breaking down quirks, writing them down, documenting, right? He doesn't even like trust himself. He's like, my body just goes. So he relies on his quirk as a crutch. That's his weakness. Another one is he thinks that he must be the one to fix everything. He's unaware of the strain that it causes on himself. He has an emotional blind spot as his third one, which is he ignores his own emotional needs. These are all the things that he's unaware of. K.M. Weiland states that the hero, John Truby states that the hero must not be aware of his weaknesses. He must be aware of his needs. He must try to get his needs, and then through that battle, through that story arc, he must get them. That's what Dan Harmon says, and he must pay a price for them. But undergoing some fundamental change, he must come to some new equilibrium in which his weaknesses have been overcome. He's grown from those weaknesses, and he's adopted his former self and like molded it, and he's like a master of both worlds. He still relies on his quirk as a crutch. He still thinks that he has to fix everything at the end. And he still ignores his own emotional needs. He never truly addresses how he feels. Like, none of his weaknesses were ever addressed. These are the issues that we're facing with the ending. So, my third issue has to deal with All For One, who was built up to be a villain that had been alive for like a century, roughly, right? Because he had the ability to expand his life, but that would reduce his quirk powers. But then he had other powers that could boost everything, so he could like overcome all these weaknesses by adding more. But then he had his own weaknesses on top of that. So what, right? They're cool. Whatever you want to do with your character, go for it. Those are the weaknesses that you come up with. But his death made no sense to me, right? Here's the good about his death. He wanted a new body. That's a great like new vision for this character, right? Like what he thinks he needs is a new body. What he wants is to control the world. Actually, I got a panel on this one. He says, I want a world where everyone exists only for my own sake, just like you do. Now, I have a dream too. So, he wants a world where everybody exists for him. He's a narcissist. He's number one. He has to be needed by everybody. And if not needed, he must be the one in control of everybody, right? So, go back to AFO. His death makes no sense in this case. He needs a new body. He wants a new body, right? And the goal is to take Tomura's body and then fight against his mind to take over Tomura's body. Oh, I like his quirk. Take that quirk for yourself. Take Decay for you. They have already been experimenting with bodies. They've created Nomus, right? It is not outside of the realm of possibility that they could have created a Nomu body for AFO. And he just uses the same quirks and powers to transfer his consciousness into this empty shell of a being that has nothing to go with it. Now, the haters are going to say, but wait, Tomura is the grandson or the great-grandson of Yoichi, his brother, and it was a complete circle, and that and they would have no connection to All Might and All Might's master, and you would have lost all that connection that Tomura was All For One's legacy. You don't need the legacy, and if you want to go down that route of All For One's creating a legacy through his bloodline, and it ends with Tomura and decades of building up through I guess dynasty of a family, right? Like generational legacy here, and you want to build it up over all of this, and you want it to have one final fight at the end with this generational, I guess, evil narcissism versus All Might's successor, and I guess you would rather say One For All successor, but then I have no connection to One For All. I have connection to All Might. You make that connection, and then you're like, it's Deku versus Tomura. And what impact does that have? All For One has been there. All For One's the one that when All Might lifted his shirt up, he showed like he's been scarred and he's been wounded, and the greatest hero, the one that Deku looks up to, has been forever wounded because of this villain that just won't die. And then that villain is in control of everything. The story makes sense from a general point of view, but then when you look down and you really take it apart, it doesn't make sense. All for One is the main villain. He's the one in control. He's the puppet. He's spending time and he's planning. The series states how much time he takes to plan out. And he enacts those plans over lots of time. He really thinks it out. And Tomura was a part of it. Like that. I get that. But remember, AFO is a narcissist at heart. He would not allow himself to play second fiddle at all. He is the number one. He could still have Tomura as his right-hand man doing his bidding. And then Tomura could have lashed out against him. I am not your, right? I'm not your lackey. I'm not your puppet. I'm my own League of Villain, right? And that would have been great because he would have, to make him still the head of the League of Villains, because then his ego starts to rise, matching the ego of AFO. And then you would have a clash between two villains that have the exact same goal. Now there's a reason for them to fight each other. They both want the same thing, so now they're fighting against it. AFO does not want to play second fiddle, so why would he take over Tomura's body? Okay, keep going with it, right? We're gonna keep going. So he says, I'm gonna take Tomura's body. We're gonna fix it, and I'm going to use it. All right, cool. When he used Aries' quirk to heal himself, I had a major issue with this, because he would not allow himself to die. There is an argument to be made that he was so fond of himself and his abilities that he thought he could overcome Aries' quirk, because he is that narcissistic. Now that matches up. I can beat that. I'm too good. No matter what I do, I'll just get rid of it. I don't know, right? Narcissism does wonders to your reasoning, right? And there's also argument to be made too that after he used Aries' quirk, and then he was taking more damage, causing him to rewind his body, that he was also regressing in his mindset as well, because his body was going backwards in time, meaning that he was acting more like a teenager, and as a child, as his body rewound, he lost his maturity. I don't think that that's too far beyond the realm of possibility. That's a good explanation for why he was ultimately thwarted by All Might at the end. All Might just said, I have to stall you so you don't get what you want, and allowed Bakugo to come in and damage your body. That all actually does check out. But I don't like that. I don't like the fact that he had to even put the quirk in his body. I don't like the fact that he didn't just one-shot All Might, didn't one-shot Bakugo. You're talking about All Might in his prime. Went toe-to-toe with this guy several times, right? And got damaged by him, scarred for the rest of his life, right? He was able to All for One didn't lose against, he might have lost against All Might, like got his head punched in, whatever. But he never ultimately lost. He still is around. And All Might's a shell of his former self. Bakugo has absolutely nothing on All Might. There's nothing Bakugo could do against the prime All Might. All Might could probably flick his fingers and kill Bakugo, right? So you're telling me that AFO in his prime body, been rewound back to prime time, couldn't just annihilate everything around him with pure force. I also understand the argument that he doesn't have all the quirks to do that, but okay. It's still the same argument, like going back and forth. But why are we even in this spot, right? It's AFO is a planner. He knows exactly what he's about to go up against. He knows that the only villain, like the hero that can truly fight against him, is Deku and Endeavor. So he would have a plan for both of them. And let's say that Endeavor does get the upper hand, grabs him, bear hugs him, shoots him in, goes into plus ultra and explodes. That still never would have happened, because All for One would have been able to break free and then kill Endeavor. He would have known that this is the only possible way. So find a quirk that does something against heat nullification, or that he has internal spikes, so that way if he were to be grabbed, he can kill somebody. Get the razor slicing back. There's so many quirks out there that he could have stolen that would have prepared him to fight against Endeavor. But to have him not be prepared like that was just a rushed ending. It's also doesn't respect the character that you built up. This is the ultimate villain. He's been around for a century. He is smart. He's intelligent. He's very, very specific in his intentions. And this is how you end his story. He goes, oh man, I didn't realize it would rewind me back and it would change my mentality and I wouldn't get the Tomura in time. No. And then to top it all off, why was Bakugo his final boss? Because it's in one of the panels it goes, Bakugo says, I'm your final boss, all for one. Crazy. That Bakugo, who has no connection to AFO whatsoever, is the one that says, I'm your final boss. No connection. None. He's only ever, like, the only thing that really comes close to mind is when AFO kidnaps him. If that's what you wanted, at that moment that AFO kidnapped Bakugo in, like, the first or second season, you should have had a really in-depth conversation between the two characters, and you really should have established that they have the exact same motive and they go to two different routes to attain that motive. But there's nothing that says, like, they're two different people with two different motives, two different hopes, two different ideals. There's no reason for them to clash. There's none. I'll even tell you this. There's another panel when All for One is dying, and he's talking to Yoichi. He says, I need you. He says, I want to crush everybody's future. I want everybody to see me forever and ever. Okay, so now we're establishing at the very end that the narcissistic view is still there and it's still prideful. And then Bakugo comes up and says, I'm your final boss. And he does all this to him. And I don't get that. It doesn't make any sense to me. So, because, like, this also combines with something else. Bakugo's plot armor. He gets absolutely annihilated by Shigaraki Tomura. He gets basically all of his internal organs basically just get shattered, right? Plot armor says, no, get back here. This hero can, like, stitch you back up and save you. Okay, so there's plot armor for Bakugo, but there's no plot armor for AFO, right? Unless your plot armor is he uses Ares' quirk to rewind himself back, but then plot armor says that he kills himself, which would never happen. A narcissist would never allow themselves to be put in that situation. He fights off AFO from his prime while he's being held by literal threads. The hero who saved him stitched his internal organs back to... Bakugo couldn't even use his right arm. All Might had to give him something for his right arm to be functional. You're telling me that this shell of a hero, this held together by literal threads, can held off AFO at his prime? Are you kidding me? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay, so I think I've kind of established, like, the issues that I have with the ending. Like, all of these issues combined, like, really destroy this ending for me. I'm not even getting involved at all into Deku versus Tomura. Like, let that play out. That's a cool fight. You wanted it to go. You can make that however you want. I really did appreciate, before we start, here's what I did appreciate. The quirk singularity kind of happened. They had been foreshadowing it, and I was hoping that that would have been the ultimate ending. And that somehow the combination of quirks led to a disappearance of quirks, right? And that should have been maybe for across all of humanity. Didn't happen that way. That's okay. But in a sense, that did end up happening for Tomura, which is Shigaraki, by the way. Actually, I have a Shigaraki right up there on the shelf. That's how much I love that character. I thought he was a great character, a very great villain, put together well. There's a lot of motive, clear motive. There's a lot of emotion with this character. He's deliberate. He's thoughtful. He's got a lot of pride. He reminds me of Vegeta in a lot of ways, with his pride controlling his actions. And so, like, he would have been a great right-hand man. So, here's how we fix this ending. The moment we've all been waiting for. And I'm going to give us two alleyways. But the first thing, here's the first change that needs to occur. Deku needs to get famous. He needs to become the greatest hero. He needs to become the #1 hero. Oh, boy. So, sorry, my phone just died on me. He needs to become the number one hero. He needs to get it. That's exactly what he wants. But he needs to pay a cost for it. And I think this is where he needs to accept his role of doing what's right, his stubbornness, um, and that becoming the number one hero does not get him what he wants. Ultimately, the price that he pays for it is that um, it's similar to the Itachi route in Naruto. You're going to become the greatest hero, but the people are going to hate you for it, right? And he needs to be shunned from everything. The way that he becomes number one needs to be something that is taboo in a sense, right? He does it, but he kills something for it, and he does it in front of people, and it does it in a grotesque way. Like maybe the way he killed Chisaki really hurt people's view of him, or something along those lines. He goes to save somebody, and he accidentally like blood splatters or something in front of a child, and then it's in front of the news, right? He needs to both get what he wants and pay a cost for it. So he needs to get shunned from everything, including his relationships. All Might needs to shun him. Bakugo needs to shun him, and his love interest as well. The story then needs to transform. The last chapters need to transform. You could say the last, I don't say last chapters. You say the last arc needs to be about the heroes fighting without him. They are fighting the League of Villains, and they are doing a good job and bad job, but still have the same thing happen. Tomura gets AFO, the whole place gets taken over, and it looks really bad. It looks really, and here's what needs to happen. We need to see, excuse me, we need to see all of the heroes with all of their plans and timings come together, and we need to see all of it play out without Deku. Now, we saw that in the ending with Deku getting transported over here and then getting shot across, or like he's flying across and everybody's fighting without him. So we already had it. But we're looking at it and be like, oh, Deku is being Deku. It's like he's there and he's trying to help, but he's just not there to help. No. Deku was shunned. We need him to be lost. He's not coming to save us, right? And we also rewind it back a little bit. While the rest of the heroes are fighting the League of Villains and fighting all of the villains who escaped and trying to bring justice, there needs to be hints of Deku in the story acting in the background where he's saving people or helping people. And so people should know it's him. They should suspect it's him, but nobody can say for sure that it was him, right? And so that way it keeps him involved in the story, and it shows that he's still doing right, and he's still choosing to be like the background hero, but he's still being shunned and that nobody wants to give him credit. And it needs to feel terrible to us because we want to feel so badly for Deku. And this will be a change for Deku, right? Deku will no longer want to be like All Might anymore. He needs to be his own unique hero. All Might need to be in front of people. He needs to be smiling. He needs to help people, right? And now Deku has now shifted to being the exact same way. I am also here just to help people, but I no longer need to be like All Might. So finally, right when All Might is about to die, right? So there's a plot, there's a point in the story. We're coming back to the main story where All Might's fighting All for One, and I think that's a great story circle end for All Might and AFO because they need to keep fighting each other, right? I think at some point All Might needs to be in the same spot where he's about to die, and Deku saves him. Not Bakugo, but Deku. Deku needs to save him. And Deku's been preparing for this moment the whole time, right? He's watching, he's protecting, and he saves All Might. He's back. He needs to come at the most crucial moment, when it's the darkest, when it's the bleakest, when Shigaraki's winning, when AFO is winning, when all these people are like, you should have your mini success stories. Don't change anything about, any of the other Dabi fights or anything like that. But Deku shows up. Now, this is where my first fix occurs, okay? And this is kind of crazy, so just go with me here for a second, right? We've set it up to here. We've changed a few things in the end. This is 2 routes, okay? Route 1 and Route 2. Route 1. Deku needs to die at the hands of Tomura. He needs to die. He does the exact same thing in the ending. And the ending is he gives up his quirk to Tomura. By the way, I think that's the proper ending. He gives up one for all, and it causes the internal struggle, and it causes him to basically explode. And same exact ending, the same way that Deku kills Tomura. He fights him, and then he goes inside of him. They connect to each other through the link of one for all, and I think that was a beautiful ending, actually, in that sense, that they do connect, and then he finds the true Tomura, and he talks to his real self, not the evil enchanted self, but like his kid version of himself, right? And that's great. In the end, Tomura also dies right there. Same thing. Boom, dies. Same thing. And as he dies, it's over. It's been won. You can kill AFO the exact same way if you want. I don't care. Have him hit the rewind quirk, right? And have him fight Deku, and Deku keeps fighting him, but Deku uses his detective powers to understand that the more he damages All For One, the more he rewinds. And so now he's using All Might's quirk, his power quirk, the same thing that All Might's strategy, rather, right? He's fighting against One For All, or All For One, AFO. And he's using his detective skills and his powers, pure brute raw strength. I'm getting there. Hold on. And he keeps fighting him and causes him to rewind, and it kills him. Same thing. Bakugo is basically barely alive. Same thing, right? Tomura basically shook him. And then Deku goes, and now he has to fight Tomura. So he's defeated All For One. Now he's going to go fight Shigaraki, right? He fights Shigaraki, kills him the same way. The exact same way. He uses the quirks, all that stuff. Now, Deku dies. Deku gets seriously, gravely injured because he's been using his body and using, like, to the fullest, using all of his skills, danger sense, all of it. He's figuring out what quirks he has, and he actually abuses the power-up quirk so much that it actually permanently destroys his body. As we've been, like, warned the entire series he can't keep doing, and he keeps doing it, but oh, it's okay. And Plot Armor says you can do it again. Nope, this is it. This is the last straw. And it destroys his body. He kills Tomura, turns around, and he falls over. Boom. Bakugo sees him, crawls over to him, starts talking to Deku, and he says to Deku, I'm going to tell your story. You are the greatest hero. I believe in you. And he for the first time, Bakugo connects to Deku. Because what has Bakugo been doing to Deku from the moment we've known Bakugo? Telling him he's worthless, he has no quirk, and he's been just gnarly ragging on this dude, right? Never giving him any, like, solace in what he's doing. He calls him a nerd at all points. You nerd. He even says in the manga, a couple chapters before they defeat AFO, that he's going to finish what the nerd can't finish, right? So he's still ragging on him in the final fight, even though Deku just saved him, right? Bakugo comes over and gives him a really heartfelt message, whatever that writing looks like. I see you. You are the greatest hero. Thank you for everything. I'm going to tell everybody your story. And then, in the next episode, or the next book, the narration starts again. Because in all of these episodes, it's like Deku narrating, right? This is the story. Nope. We find out that it really wasn't Deku narrating the story the whole time. It was a fake. What it was is that Bakugo was found all of Deku's journals, because Deku keeps journals on everything. Everything! All of his encounters. Deku found all of his journals, went back and rewrote them into a new book. And as he was writing it, he was creating the story of how he became, Deku, the greatest hero. And he was going to tell everybody his story. And that would have been the closure we all needed, because I would have cried, because that meant Bakugo had the heart that we knew he had. We know Bakugo's got a big heart. And he did all of this for Deku because he recognized Deku's sacrifice. And it would have been a beautiful ending. It would have been a really just a beautiful ending to the story. And it also would have explained a couple other things, like, like Deku's lack of character transformation. Because now the story, the whole time we would have found out, would have been told from Bakugo's point of view. He sees Deku as the same person from the moment he met him to the moment he died. He knew who Deku was. And that's why the story never changed. It would have made a lot of sense. Then we would have been flipped off. Oh my god, it was Bakugo the whole time. Yes, the narrator was Bakugo. He's the one who underwent the final change. He underwent the most fundamental change. It would have been beautiful. That's how you fix that ending. I'm going to go a second route now. So if you don't like Route 1, which is a beautiful route, let's go to Route 2. In that, well, Deku survives. Okay, here's the alternative fix. You don't like Deku beating up All For One and saving his mentor and then beating up Tomura. Okay, here's number 2. All right, here's your alternate fix. Deku is forced to use and rely upon his danger sense quirk. So, what this looks like is during his final moments of him versus AFO and versus Tomura. Those two should be going at it right now, right? There should be a struggle between the two. You should let AFO and Tomura meet up. That is the climax. We needed that to happen. They have to meet up, and then AFO has to try to take over Tomura's body. And Tomura recognizes that All For One, wait, he's got a rewind thing. Oh my goodness, he doesn't have the same, he doesn't have all these powers that he only has, oh, boom. Tomura kills AFO on the spot using his decay quirk. Because he's got true mastery of it, he can grab him, and the ultimate power, boom, done. Thanos snapped away. AFO dead to his own I get what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the Jedi Sith, right? You can only have one leader. Apprentice. He died to his own apprentice's hands, right? Literally would have grabbed him and killed AFO in front of everybody. The true horror of what we just saw. Nobody has ever been able to touch, other than All Might, All For One. In the matter of a couple seconds, Tomura kills AFO, and it was effortless. The horror. It would have been truly terrifying. It would have truly been like, oh my god. There's no way we can overcome this, right? We need to make this situation truly dire, right? Now, that's when he goes after Deku. And it gets even worse. Deku cannot use All Might's powers. He's still limited to 60 or 65%. He's thinking about it. He's doing his best just to keep up with him, and he's done. He can't. He's exhausted everything. But the only thing he has left truly that he can use to its maximum potential is danger sense. And he has to rely on his wits. Oh my goodness. He has to use all the detective work. He has to use all the preparation. He has to use his knowledge to overcome Tomura in the end. And he can still give Tomura AFO. And this is how he figures it out. He recognizes that One For All has been passed from generation to generation to generation, and it just enhances the power of that quirk. And they keep saying, Deku, you're the last one, because the next person it goes to, it's going to take away their life. They're not going to be able to hold on to it. It's just going to make them more powerful. It's going to take away their life energy. Give him One For All, and it needs to put his decay quirk into overdrive. It's already amazing, but it puts it into increasingly over the power plus ultra overdrive, where Tomura can't handle it. He can't, and it eats away at his body, and Tomura dies ultimately to his own quirk. His own quirk kills him. Deku doesn't kill him. Deku's hands remain bloodless, right? In a sense, because he does give him the quirk. But Tomura could die to his own hands. So that would have meant both villains would have died to the same exact quirk. One used intentionally, the other one used against himself. It's a twist of fate. that was kind of how I designed that ending, was a twist of fate ending. And I that's a good ending too. And I think that would have made a lot more sense with readers if that was the end. And then Deku does need to actually become a detective. But that's not a teacher. He needs to become a detective. He needs to realize that I can still save people if I help them using my knowledge of powers. And he can become the ultimate like detective of I guess the quirk users. It would have been really awesome to see an ending like that. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the endings. I prefer the first ending. I also would prefer if Tomura would have risen against All for One. That would have been really cool. You can even combine the two endings together where Tomura does rise up against All for One and kills him, and then fights Deku and kills him in the end. That you can combine all of these elements together. And then Bakugo is the one telling the story in the end. I think would have been really powerful, and I don't think anybody would have expected that at all. And I think it would have been really sad. And we would have loved Bakugo for it. We really would have loved Bakugo for it. So yeah, I hope this video and this breakdown of the story finds you well. If you got to the end and you appreciate it, I believe my next story that I'm going to fix is Jujutsu Kaisen's ending. I have to do a lot more research into it. I'm not sure, but if you have any other endings that you'd like to fix, shoot them my way. My goal is to create a channel that you can bring your story to me and I can fix it for you, or I can write the ending for you. This world desperately needs somebody that is good at writing endings, and because we are getting the end of the stick, the short stick, right, on this one, as of lately. It just hasn't been good for endings lately for us. So on that ending, have a good night.